Peace online.
And I'm waiting on notification.
Yes, sir.
And boom. Okay, and we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have a marvelous guest with us, one who I'm very humble on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast. Thank you, Brother Stephen Muhammad, for coming on the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam, Brother Joshua. It's an honor, and it's a very great, humbling feeling to be on the podcast that I know touches so many people. We really appreciate your due diligence in this type of a program.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Now, before we get started, I just want to make sure that people know Brother Stephen is a part of my childhood, all my siblings' childhood. Always been a great brother and a friend to us and my family and the believers in Chicago. When we went to Muhammad University, you were always very kind to us and always had a good spirit. So I just want to make sure that the people know that who may not know you, that Brother Stephen is a cool brother. And as I became an adult and started working with the ETeam and doing security on the Most Min Farrakhan, Brother Stephen, you always showed me love, man. It always made me feel appreciated and a part of the brotherhood. So I appreciate that, Brother Stephen. I wanted to thank you for that publicly, so you can know that means a lot to me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, it means a lot for you to say it, but you give what you get. You give what you get, man. And over the years, your family. I mean, come on now, let's keep it 100. Your father trained me. So, I mean, along with others, of course, but he was a pinnacle part of my upbringing in the nation. And he was a hands-on man. You know that for yourself, and he speaks straight words. You know that for yourself. But the beautiful thing about your father is that as much as he speaks straight words, you can speak straight words to him. And he's what I call a man's man. Been my brother and still my brother. And hey, I would. It's no ifs, ands, or buts. I wouldn't be where I am on your podcast if it wasn't for your father.
Praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
yes.
Well, Brother Stephen, let's get straight into it.
Come on now.
When did you first hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Brother, it was, I want to say, I'm not always good with years, but it was around 1985 that I first heard the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I had gone to a Savior's Day here in Chicago, if my memory serves me correctly, at the Pavilion. And the UIC Pavilion on University of Illinois Circle campus. And that was the first time I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speak. And I wish I had that video. I can't find it for some odd reason, but that video actually showed me sitting in the audience. And I was like, wow, to look back on it. But it was about 1985 when I first heard the teachings. But I got a real interesting story for you, though. It was a little bit after that, I believe, when I first shook the hand of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I was at a restaurant in the Chicago area, Calumet City, and I saw all these children in the restaurant, right? And I'm like, man, all these children running around all over the place, And then all of a sudden, they just kind of gravitated to one corner of the restaurant. So I'm standing there with a friend of mine, and I'm looking, and I'm like, man, I'm looking. I said, wait a minute. That's Minister Farrakhan sitting over there. I'm like, I'm going to shake his hand. Now you got to understand, I didn't know nothing about security, none of that, so I had no clue, right? And I'm going to shake his hand, and a brother stood up in front of me, and I can't even remember who it was. I just remember they was big, And he was like, hold up, young fella. And I kind of think at one point, I think it was Brother Leonard, actually, the chief of staff for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir.
And he stood up, and it was like, hold up, young fella. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know. I just saw the minister, man. That's all I saw was the minister. And I went to shake his hand, and he shook my hand. And I remember, man, because his hands were so soft, I never forget that. And that was the first time I met him and touched him, physically.
Yes, sir.
Now, the rest is history after that, because one of my best friends and Mustafa were friends, which Mustafa had happened to come by my buddy's house to deliver a Quran to his mother, right? Me and my buddy sitting in the backyard, man. We just got through cutting grass, drinking a beer, you know, watching, I think the NBA championship or something was on, something like that. And the next thing I know, Brother Mustafa started dropping the teachings about grafting. I don't even know if he remembers this, but, and I was like, man, that sounded so interesting to me. And I was like, man, where you hear something like that? Well, I didn't know he was the minister's son. I didn't know, you know, I'm green. This is like the late 80s, mid to late 80s. So it was after that, I went to another Savior's Day, approximately 89. I want to say Stop the Killing tour. And after that, I started processing in 1990. Okay, in 1990. However, I didn't get my ex till 1992. So that shows you that I was still, you know, I was still dibbling and dabbling and, you know, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you know, tight roping and all of that.
Yes, sir.
And then it just clicked. It was like, man, come on and, you know, do what you got to do. And I got my ex in the Nation of Islam of June 1st, 1992. You know, so I thank Allah every day, brother. Yes, sir, because it's been 29 years and a few months now, you know. And so when you say that at the beginning, how, you know, I saw you grow up into a young man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, so, and it's like that with a lot of the believers' children. You get to see them grow up over 25 to 30 years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? So I consider myself a 30-year man, to be honest with you. You know, I'm just gonna round it out. They say round it off to the nearest 100 or the nearest 10. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I consider myself a 30-year man in the Nation of Islam under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. Beautiful. And can you let us know what the climate was like in the mosque in 1992 when you came in? Who was training? Who was the officers? And how did the community feel towards you all?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, you know, back in the early 90s, man, you have to understand that the minister was crisscrossing the country. You know, like a lot of people say the minister today, he's gotten, you know, wiser and he's not doing as much traveling and things like that. And, you know, so we see him in a more, you know, nostalgic type of setting to me, you know, as compared to when he was really hitting the country. You know, he was rocking and rolling so much that back then you came in the mosque running. You came in the mosque running because not only was he speaking so much, but the final call was, you know, of course, on the streets. So it was a fast-paced type of atmosphere for brothers and sisters, because the sisters were, every time you looked up, there was some type of banquet, gala, fundraiser for Muhammad University. Something was always going on. So every time you looked up, there was people coming in and out of town. It was like mini Savior's Days. You know, to be honest, you know, and at that time when I came in, I had the fortunate assignment of also being on the protocol staff.
Okay, okay.
So by being on the protocol staff, I was able to, you know, be in those functions and listen to the minister talk to, you know, an audience of 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, you know, and of course, always electrifying, but you saw people that you normally didn't see. You know, the minister, as popular as he was and is, you know, people always weren't too willing to run to large settings to listen to him. You know, they wanted to kind of keep it, you know, incognito, we'll say, you know, or incognito, you know.
Yes, sir.
But right, but you know, working on the protocol staff, it taught me a lot. You know, that's when I started learning about security. Actually, because protocol is actually part of security, you know, whether you realize it or not. And in that respect, you know, being that being that protocol is a part of security, I started interacting with the ETeam. And just the interactions in itself built me up. You know, it started preparing me. And, you know, to kind of make a long story short, I got to mention this brother's name because, man, you know, it was kind of how the ball started rolling. But it was Benny Moe. Our brother, Benny Moe, man, let me tell you, you know, we don't realize, some of us forget that Benny Moe, everybody know Benny Moe. If you're in the Nation of Islam, been around the Nation of Islam, you know our brother. Well, he gave me my first assignment to be Minister Ishmael security. Right. That was in approximately 93, right in that ballpark. Now, in 93, the minister spoke at the Georgia Dome, and that's when he had a crowd of over 65,000 people. And that crowd outdid the World Series that was right down the street at one of the baseball arenas. I think they had 55,000. And it was Benny Moore that put me on the door of the green room to where the minister was to be, you know, before his lecture. And that's when I first really got to see the motorcade drive up and, you know, and see, you know, the minister come out the limo and everything. And really, that's when it really started hitting me like, man, this thing is bigger than what you realize. You know, if you haven't traveled out of town, you know, you really done yourself a disservice. Because that's when you really see the minister's impact on people throughout this country, let alone the world, you know, let alone the world. Sorry about these little things popping up.
Oh, yes, sir. That's all good.
You know, but that's when you realize, man, the minister's all over the place, you know. So that's kind of when I started, you know, I was getting on security. I started getting more security minded. And then I got with Brother Todd, you know, and, you know, for many, many years, Brother Todd was the Honorable Minister Farrakhan's driver, you know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Driver. And it was during that time that I was pulled into the fold to start to be trained, you know, and Emil was the lead car driver. Our brother James was a backup driver. And it was like, that's when I started, you know, that I started getting that itch, you know, and as time progressed, they kept training me. Now I understand I do come from a mass transit background, you know, so, you know, street activity from a vehicle standpoint was, you know, normal to me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's just how the God works. You know, it's just how the God works, you know. I mean, I've been around buses, trains, cars, you know, man, over 32 years, I retired from a transit system in Chicago. So I understand what we say, moving people, you know, and that's what we do. We move people, you know. So I've had that opportunity to be trained by the best of the best.
Yes, sir.
You know, and now here I am on your podcast, you know, which you're being, you know, best of the best. So, you know, it's a humbling feeling, but it was a lot of work involved. You know, a lot of work involved. I mean, it wasn't no overnight sensation, you know. And that's when I talk about that back then, you know, we hit the ground running. You know, the nation was so active and so viable in the communities and so visible in the communities that there was nowhere for you to go but to be in the community. You know, there were a lot of church functions we would go to and interact with different churches. And, you know, some of the young brothers back then would speak at the churches, you know, as guest speakers. And, you know, we had the same type of concept and same type of approach that we did with the minister. You know, we made sure that everything was done properly with protocol and security and, you know, professionalism, you know. So it was really a uplifting learning time in that early 90s, you know, right before the Million Man March, you know, and we know what that is.
Yes, sir. We're going to come to that, brother Steve. We're going to come to that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, Brother Stephen, I have first of all, thank you on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast. We want to thank you again, Brother Stephen, for your sacrifice and the sacrifice of your family. We greatly appreciate it. Yes, sir. For putting all the work that you put in. My sisters, both of them send the greetings. Naima Mimi, Brother Dr. Henry M. Carter says he was there. Brother Benny Jr. says all praises to Allah. Some people showing you love in the comments. Mr. Taylor, some people just showing you love. Thank you all for continuing to like, share, and subscribe to the People's Podcast. My next question for you, sir, is help us understand, right? Because we depend on Wi-Fi, cell phones. How were you all driving the man of God around back in the day without all this technology all across the country? How did that feel? How did y'all do it?
Brother, I used to say the exact same thing. Verbatim. I used to say to Todd and Emil and the brothers who were running the motorcade, man, how did y'all do it without the technology? But then doing it without the technology, I had to remember, that's why it's called the Nation of Islam. Mm-hmm. That there are people who have expertise all across the country, really all around the world. Let's put it like that.
Sir. Yes, sir.
So there were people, it's just like when you see the president travel, he travels and then he travels with, his staff. And then there are other staff that fulfill the needs of that staff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's other staff that fulfills the needs of that staff, So it was very humbling because you got a chance to meet so many people who were all a part of this staff, that helped move the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan throughout the country. And so in this, it's like a production, you're bringing in people with expertise from all over, And so by doing this, we were able to build a core unit that now has stretched basically around the world.
Yes, sir.
And so, but yes, there wasn't GPS really back then, in the early 90s. Look, but Josh, I had a cell phone back then, right? Man, my cell phone's almost big as a shoebox. I had one of them big bricks. Everybody remember them big bricks from back in the day? And that was one of our forms of communication when we traveled, So it was like there was no, you had pagers, but you didn't have phones to return the call. You know what I'm saying? So you literally had to run to a payphone and, try to hit somebody back, call somebody. But we also had support staff that knew the areas that we were going to be in like the back of their hand, and so they were able to help assist along with the recon that you do in these type of situations. There's a lot of research done in order to move a man like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. A lot of research, and I'll only say, if you can imagine how the president moves, then I'm going to say, I believe we move even better. I'm just going to keep it like that. And this isn't to toot our own horn, but there's a different motivation here. See, and again, this is not to take a stab at anyone, but those who work for organizations such as the Secret Service and things of that nature that support high dignitary protection and high dignitary movement, well, they're doing it out of, it's a job. But our understanding is from it's love, and when you're doing something out of love, let me tell you, there's no obstacles that will get in your way. There's no no's that can't become a yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's no door that can't be opened. So we do it out of love, and love heightens your ability, because the love we give is the love we have gotten. You see, and so we're trying to reciprocate the love that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has shown to us and the world, really, where we're trying to give it back in some capacity of assistance. And that's what we do. You know, we know that, and the minister has said it many times, that Allah is his protection. He has said that numerous times, and we all are realistic with that. Yet, we also know and he has told us Allah works through human beings. Okay, so let's not get it confused.
Yes,
that, you know, this isn't some poof and there he appears. You know, he has to be able to not worry about certain things as he's going to give speeches and lectures and meetings of that nature to so many levels of people. The last thing he needs to be worrying about is how I'm gonna get there. You know, the last thing he needs to be worried about is, well, where do I turn left? Where do I turn right? You know, so those of us that have been given this assignment to be helpers with his motorcade, that is such a high honor. I mean, you know, I'm just gonna keep it like this. This is the modern times. So Jesus doesn't ride on donkeys anymore. Okay, Jesus rides in vehicles and cars and trucks. You know, come on, let's keep it 100.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, so as we move our Jesus, and I said it, we do it because he has given us a life-giving teaching that has opened us up to a higher relationship with God. You know, a higher relationship with his Christ and a higher relationship with the Jesus of our day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you don't want to do nothing but give that back to a man like this. You know, but again, like I said, it's work now. You know, I just can't. You know, the Most High Elijah Muhammad said, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, when in doubt, work. If you need to get something done, you got to work at it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And when you look up that definition of work, it's such a pivotal word in our life that we don't use enough. You know, you got to work at these things. And we work and we work and we do more work until we know that we can accompany the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from one destination to the next as a hot knife through butter. You know, we want to make his assignment as seamless as possible. You see, so we take great pride. We take this seriously. This ain't no joke. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. Okay, that we all said that oath, that our life, you know, and our death are all for Allah.
Yes, sir.
You know, so we don't make no bones about it. But you know, before you do anything, you pray. And when you pray and you stay in prayer, you know, I heard one time, I think it was a tweet, and it was a lady asking the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, you know, she was like, you're so busy and you do so many things. You know, how do you get time to pray? You know, when you're constantly in motion and meetings and lectures and, you know, how do you get time to pray? And again, I'm paraphrasing, but the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan answered that with, his life is a prayer. When I heard that, man, it was like, wow, like, you know, that's how we got to be living our life. That, man, we got to keep prayed up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, I mean, yeah, you might not get on your prayer rug today, but get on it tonight. Get on it tomorrow, you know? And if you don't, attention prayer, you know, get up and say your prayer. And if you don't, the remembrance of Allah is a prayer. You know, keep him in your mind. Keep those things in the Quran that give you strength in your mind, and you'll be found always praying.
Beautiful,
you know?
beautiful.
Always
Yes,
praying. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Well, you're getting so much love in the comments. People all over the country saying that's right. Sister Tracy from Baltimore, my brother-in-law, Brother Keem. So many people are just showing you love. Saying real talk, praise be to Allah. Brother Vince is here saying, Brother Steve, he loves to hear your journey and others that he works with. Praise be to Allah. Beautiful, yes, sir. And yes. Okay, well, speaking of your journey, I have of course, a lot more questions, but we have yes, a quick 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast.
Yes, sir.
Brother Steve, and we'll be right back with you. I just want to make sure that we announce all of the sponsors. Thank everyone who watches, because the People's Podcast, I mean, we are just people all over the country just show us love through sponsorships and donations, and we are very grateful for you all. If you would like to be a sponsor or donor, please cash out the People's Podcast. Thank you very much. My brother Rashad, Street Premier Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Thank you very much, brother Rashad. My sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me, children's book and coloring book, both of which are available on Amazon. Please go out and get both of those. My sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country and right here in the studio in Atlanta, Georgia. We love our tiny dancers. Sister Rashida Rafat, Raw Communications. If you are working on a book and you need copy editing, media relations, content development, please reach out to Sister Rashida Rafat with Raw Communications. Student Minister Robert L. Muhammad out of Austin, Texas. Conflict mediation and squashing the beef. He does a wonderful job in the community and in the Southwest region. Thank you very much, sir. His wife, Sister Fudia Muhammad, Children of the Most High, Giving Birth to a God, The Science of Child Rearing. Thank you very much, Sister Fudia. Please go out and get that book. Brother Kenneth, Bowtie Extraordinaire. He'll send bow ties to you anywhere in the country. Thank you very much. Sister Sherry Muhammad, Asiatic Minds Online. If you want to send your children to school virtually, please reach out to Sister Sherry, AsiaticMinds.com. Young kings and queens are being made right there. Dr. Henry M. Carter, King Henry's Turkey Legs right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Rashad Muhammad of Chicago, COVID-19 Disinfecting Cleaning Services. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ, and his new book, Down Is Not Out, AbdulSharif.com. And last but not least, my two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book with the K on Amazon, and No Father, No Excuse, which is on Amazon as well. Thank you all very much. Right back to Brother Stephen Muhammad. Okay, yes, so Brother Stephen, my next question for you is, there are many of us who are with Inside the Nation who want to, assist the minister in some way and assist our nation in some way. With being a driver, is that something that you can be trained to do, or is that something that you're born to do? Can anybody do it, or is that like something that you're like chosen to do?
Well, I like to. That's a very good question, Brother Joshua, too. That's a very good question. And I like to look at it like this. Many people drive, but everyone's not a driver. And what I mean by that is, as a driver, you can pretty much get behind anything and move it. Okay. If it's a manual, you can move it. If it's a semi, you can move it. Your aptitude to pick up on how to operate a moving vehicle is automatic almost. Yet I would say that drivers are born. You're born to do this because, one of the things that every dignitary protection unit has is drivers. And the driver has to be one of the most disciplined operators in the unit. I mean, let's think about it. You're driving a 4,000, 6,000 pound projectile, okay, that can do a lot of damage if it's not, handled appropriately based on what it was made for. So in developing this skill set, this skill level, because as we see, it's a profession today. Driving isn't just something that people do. It's something they make a livelihood out of.
Yes, sir.
And so you have to remember that. And in being a driver, of course, our objective is, and our slogan is kind of curbside to curbside. We are responsible to move, or those who are in that position are responsible to move their principle from curbside to curbside. So other than that, you stepping out of your jurisdiction. Like they say, stay in your lane.
Yes, literally. Sir. Yes,
sir. Literally. So curbside to curbside. Well, when you understand that, you realize that you have to have a high amount of discipline, because you have to stay with that vehicle. You have to make sure that vehicle is fit for operation. You have to know something about the vehicle's mechanics. and what it does, what it sounds like, what it doesn't do, what it doesn't sound like. You know, you have to be able to look through that vehicle and check it for listening devices. You have to be able to check it for explosive devices. You have to be able to, which you should do that with your own car. You know, to do that with your regular car. You should check your car from time to time and make sure, you know, that there's no tracking device on it. There, you know, come on now. You know, the concept of what we do is also placed on how do you value yourself? You know, how do you see yourself? How do we see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? You know, and I don't mean any disrespect, but when I say this, but he's just not some local minister or some local pastor. You know, it's much bigger, it's much greater than that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So in having that responsibility and that honor to move him, you have to really be given this assignment from God, of course. You have to be, because your heart, your soul, your mind, you know, everything you have to give when you driving that vehicle. You know, that's like they say, you got to leave it on the field.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Same thing. You got to leave it on the road. You know, and this is one of those aspects. There's no margin for error here. You know, I mean, inshallah, there's no, you know, we can't be 50% right. You know, we can't be 75% right. We can't be 90% right. We have to be 110% right. Now you say, well, how are you going to be 110% right? Well, you have to expect the unexpected. Okay. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. The supreme captain of the Nation of Islam has drilled that into our brains for years. Okay. So that in itself means you have to do your homework. You know, just like when you get up in the morning and you driving to work, well, you know where you're going. You know the route you're going to take. You know what time you're going to be there, how long it's going to take. You know, if it's raining, you got to give a little more time. If it's snowing, you got to give a little more time. If it's a nice sunny day, well, what time is it? Is the sun in your eyes when you drive it, or is it at your back? You know, all of these things are variables in when you're operating a professional motorcade, whether it be a dignitary section or a line of school buses. You know, you have to think these things through. You know, how much fuel are you going to use, you know, that day? You know, all of these things are factored in. And then practice. You know, you're running your routes. You're doing things that give you the information for you to make the best decisions. You know, the more information you have, the better decision you can make. So it's like, if I'm going to go out skiing, well, can I handle the big slope, or do I need to be on the bunny hill? You know, you got to understand that, you know, and these are things, you know, we look at, we observe, we study, you know, we train for, you know, we pass information. We don't just study amongst ourselves. You know, there's a lot of information out here when it comes to certain things like this, you know, when it comes to security, you know, when it comes to something as simple as buying a home alarm system, you know, there's a lot of information that you can get to help do this. Well, there's a lot of information you can get if you decide to open up a limousine business, you know, and you're going to be driving people who you might have to use 3-4 cars at a time, you know, to drive groups or bands or, you know, people of that nature. So you got to understand how to move those vehicles together so they move as one, you know. But I would say this, that in order to do this efficiently, you have to know your principle. You know, you have to understand, what are they doing? What is their mission? What is their assignment? You know, you can't be moving them in a manner that disrupts their thought, you know, that disrupts their study. It might be in your car reading. They might be in your car on the phone or doing anything. You have to be able to, you know, you don't hear anything. You focusing on what's going on. You hear, but you're not necessarily listening, you know. But if you're in another vehicle, you're hearing and you're listening, because these people in your other vehicles are assisting you as you move this motorcade throughout the city. You know, so there are ways to do it, and there are ways not to do it. You know, but after it's all said and done, when you're doing something out of love, oh my God, the standard is so much higher. You know, the dedication is so much higher. You know, if someone came to me and said, Steve, I want to be in the motorcade, I'm going to say, well, why? You know, what makes you any different from the next brother in line or the next sister in line for that matter? You know, what makes you any different? What makes you special where you want to take on this level of an assignment? You know, it's got to come out your heart. And I'll hear it. I'll know it. You know, we all know it. I can listen to you and look at you and tell that you're doing this out of your heart. You know, this is a passion for you. You know, this is something that I believe you were born to do.
Praise be to God. Yes, sir.
You know, so, but in that process, you still have trained yourself. You still have studied. You know, you still have learned the broadcasting techniques or the skill set, we say, you know, that you need in that industry. So it's the same thing on our end, that we had to learn the skill set we needed to move a man like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. See, it takes a certain skill set, certain dedication, certain discipline, certain obligation. But you mentioned earlier, it also takes support of your family.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, your family is key. Family, with no family, there's no nation. You know, it's just that simple. No family, no nation. You know, no self, no family. No God, no self.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Yes, sir.
So we have to make sure we keep that lineage, I'll say, in its proper order. You know, God, self, family, nation, you know, or community, you know, and a nation. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When you understand that and you pray on that and you feel you've been assigned a position to help in building that, man, you take it seriously. You take it very seriously, but it's also fun. You know, I got to admit, you know, Josh, how we do when we on the road, you know, you travel with us,
yes,
you
sir.
know, you've been across this country and you see, man, the brotherhood. I'll say the Nation of Islam has allotted me the opportunity to travel across this country and out of this country. You know, so it's like the people you meet along the way, oh my God, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. You know, you meet believers from all walks of life. You meet people from all walks of life, you know, come from every genre, every locale. But the one common denominator, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, and when you see all of these people coming from all educational backgrounds, all financial backgrounds, all spiritual backgrounds, and they come to hear him, man, I'm telling you, to be a witness to this man today, oh my God, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, that's just one of the words I could use.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, but it's so beautiful because I get to meet brothers like yourself. I get to meet believers across the country that have the same concept. We're here to help build the nation under someone's voice, you know? And so it's such a fulfilling position because we come from all walks of life to serve, you know? And if you're not using that word in your vocabulary or in your vernacular, something's wrong. If you're in the Nation of Islam and you find yourself speaking and you don't ever use the word serve or servant, something's wrong. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You know, something's wrong because that's what we're here to do. We serving our God. We serving his representative. We're serving the people, the community, our nation.
Yes, sir.
You know, ourselves. You know, So this is a word that should be in our vocabulary every day. What type of service can we render to each other? You know, it don't have to be big. You know, the Holy Quran says the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, tells us just helping a man onto his horse is charity.
Yes, sir. Yes,
you
sir.
know, just saying a kind word is charity. Well, that's service. Because you never know when you say that kind word, the position that person was in that heard it. You know, where they were at. So, and we need to hear a kind word too.
That's right.
You know, so it's I would say to anyone to take on, I call them special assignments, which all assignments are important, but some of them are special. Okay, I'm just gonna, I hope I'm not stepping on toes, but some assignments are special. Just everybody can't do it. And that old saying, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. Now, you don't ever want to do that when you are serving someone, because you have the responsibility for them, to them, and you don't want to go outside your limitations and not be able to serve properly.
Mm-hmm.
A position like this, you have to know your limitations. You have to know your stress level. There's a lot of stress involved.
Yes, sir.
You have to know when you need to rest, and close your eyes and be still and make sure you're calling on the God all the time. You have to know when not to drink a whole lot of water when you're going to get behind the wheel. Something that simple. See, I mean, when you think about it, if you're on the road for a few hours, you don't need to drink a gallon of water right before you get on the road.
Yes, sir.
That's a disaster waiting to happen, So these are things you have to remember. You have to put it into your to-do list, we'll say. But after the day is gone and you go home and you can kick your feet up because your man is back home safe in his bed with his family, with his wife, as we all return to our wives and our families.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's a very comforting feeling, but then you better set your alarm because you're going to be back up tomorrow. That's
yes,
right.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, Brother Stephen, thank you very much. And you're getting so much love. This is Minister Aisha from Phoenix saying anytime we can help in his mission, we should be honored. Praise be to Allah. So many people are showing you so much love. Thank you all for the people who continue to watch the People's Podcast every week. We thank you for your support. Brother Stephen, my next question for you is, you're traveling, you're in Chicago, there's the Most High Min Farrakhan, the plan of the enemy is to murder the messenger of Allah.
Yes, sir.
And you right with him. Is there ever been a time that you were faced with fear? And if so, how have you overcome that fear?
Well, and that's another excellent question, because fear is something that we all are going to face sometime in our life. But I think the concept of fear has to be defined, because the question is, can you turn fear into motivation? Can you turn fear into encouragement? Can you turn fear into the initiation of a process? Can you turn fear into progress?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, so the fear that I might have ever come across was not based on something directly coming at me, but there's always the fear of the unknown. You can't gather enough information, to make sure you see what the threat levels are and the different people who just don't understand yet. Let's face it. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been a controversial man before I was born.
Yes.
Yes. So, in that respect, controversy sometimes causes people to gather their fears, okay, and try to use their fears against you, and so in that respect, it's like when you have established a relationship with your God, And I'm not saying that I feel my relationship is perfect with Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. I don't feel it's perfect, but I feel that the intention is to make it better every day. And in making it better every day, that's where the word service comes back. You know, the more I can serve, the better I hope I can see Allah putting those blessings in the bank.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And not necessarily for me, but for my children, you know, for my grandchildren, for the believers, you know, because we are not going to do everything at the same time. Some of us have to be here for a certain time, then we've accomplished our assignments. Then the next crew has to be here for a certain time to accomplish their assignments.
Yes, sir.
So we got to keep that real. You know, the flesh is not forever. But the principle that the flesh represents, that can live forever. Because we keep it into the people, into the babies, into the schools, okay, into the friendships in all walks of life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, we're examples. You know, we're not perfect examples. That's why we still here. You know, however, we're a better example than we were yesterday. See, we were a better example than before we came to the nation. And I would hope we are. You know, I would pray we are. You know?
Yes, sir.
And tomorrow, we hope to be a better example than today. You know, so when it comes to fear, I cannot allow fear to take me off my post. You know, I want to walk my post in the perfect manner, keeping always on the alert. I really do. And our post is our life. And our life has been given an assignment. And the assignment now has to be walked in a perfect manner, keeping always on the alert.
Yes, sir.
You know, so in that respect, fear does not make me not want to do something. Fear makes me want to do something better. Fear makes me want to share my knowledge and share the example that I've been given in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to those that I know. And how do I share that? By being an example. You know, I once heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say, and I'm sure you can bear witness, Brother Joshua, that the way to secure him is to secure the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad in our lives.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You see what I'm saying? Now we're doing that through Islam, but it's never been where you can't study these teachings because you're not a Muslim. Because once you know what your nature is, you'll realize you are a Muslim. See, so to those who might not feel that this is something for them, I just say, try it and see. You know, try it. Nobody's forcing you. Nobody's bending your arm, but study the Holy Quran. Okay? Study how to eat to live.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Study Message to the Black Man. Study Our Savior Has Arrived. Study Closing of the Gap. You know, study the Bible. Study the Torah. Okay? When you do these things, you'll see how much enhanced you are as a human being, and that will qualify you to serve even better. See? So in that respect, it's like, I can't imagine being fearful at this point in my life and not doing something.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just like I can't imagine how I would be if I wasn't in the nation. That's not an imagination for me anymore. You know, man, what would I be doing if I wasn't in the nation? I don't know, and I don't concern myself with it. I'm in the nation. You know, I remember, Josh, not to get off the subject, but I told my father once, we were here in Chicago, may Allah be pleased with him. And I said, Dad, he said, yes, son. I said, I want to talk to you about something. He said, yeah, I can tell you have something on your mind. I said, Dad, I'm thinking about joining the Nation of Islam. He looked at me with one of the sternest looks I've ever seen in my life from my father. And he said, son, you're doing the right thing. Once he told me that, it was a wrap. It was a wrap. But I mean, no, nothing against mama, but mama, I love you. But once dad said that, man, I ran to the mosque, bro. You see what I'm saying? So when you have people who have helped develop that seed in you to step out of your comfort zone, because the Nation of Islam is not something you come and get comfortable with. Now, I'm not bear witness to that. I'm sure you can.
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is not where you come to get comfortable. This is where you come to grow and work out of your comfort zone. And you'll find yourself being in another, I'll just say in another way of yourself by coming out of your comfort zone and doing this work. So brother, is so invigorating to be here, to be able to express myself on your podcast, because I know in spite of myself, Allah still uses me in this work. In spite of myself. But I challenge anyone not just to listen to the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, because many have heard him, many have listened to him, but I challenge you to study him. Study the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Go back. And if go back when he first came in the nation, go back. Okay, go back when he was a young man. Go back and study him. And as you study him, you're going to see so many parallels of your own life. See, just a different time, but the same obstructions then are obstructions today. The same oppressors then, when the minister first came in the Nation of Islam, are the same oppressors today.
That's right.
See, they haven't changed. They might have put on a nicer suit, but the same principle or the same concept applies. Oppress. The oppression of our people, the oppression of the world. So the racism in the world, all of these things, they haven't gone anywhere. They just got on a different looking suit.
That's right.
That's all. And now, yeah, some of the older ones have died away, but they passed that on to their children and their grandchildren. Again, not to get off the subject, but you hear people talk about, well, slavery was so long ago. Well, I tell you what, if it was so long ago, give us the money that was picked from the cotton, okay, by our people, and let's see if that money that was long ago will be useful in today's world. See, because that's how they got their millions and billions. That's how they got their generational wealth. See, nobody wants to talk about that. Most of these corporations, if you look at them, that's how they got started. See, they don't want to talk about that. They want to forget that part. How convenient. See, how convenient. So yes, those are things that inspire me to work harder and assist the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan even harder in my personal life. And again, you mentioned earlier about being a referee. Let me tell you, one of the biggest honors I have had as being a referee, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And wearing the last name Muhammad. I went to, well, it was actually two, but one I was refereeing a high school game. I think it was Thornridge or Thornwood, right outside of Chicago, Illinois.
Yes, sir.
And the announcer, before, teams are warming up, the referees, we kind of, checking things out and whatnot. And I was walking over to the announcer's table. He said, Muhammad, right? He knows me. Then he said, oh, it's going to be a good one tonight. Muhammad in the house tonight. Now, he said it where a lot of people heard it, but just the mention of the name Muhammad, brother.
That's right. That's right.
In direction to me, brother, I was so proud to have that striped shirt on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You feel me? Because not only was I representing the officials for basketball, I was representing Islam, Muhammad. Okay. Now, he might have not known I was in the Nation of Islam at the time, but he knew I wore that name, Muhammad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, and knowing that Muhammad is the most revered name in the world, most popular name in the world is Muhammad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when you wearing that name, man, you know, you want to do your best. You want to put your best foot forward. You know, and that's one of the things that I try to do in other aspects of my life. Being a basketball official, man, I probably come in contact with more youth in 1 year than people will in a lifetime. In a lifetime. Well, to all of these young brothers and sisters that I'm on the court with, I'm Ref Muhammad. Ref Muhammad. Now that's Ref Muhammad, not Ref Stephen, not Ref Stephen Muhammad, Ref Muhammad. That is such a humbling experience to have people come up to you. Hey, Ref Muhammad, what did you think? Hey, Ref Muhammad, what, you know, or just Muhammad. So that name brings so much joy to me when it's said back to me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, so again, not to get too far off the subject, you know, but it's part of who we are.
That's right.
You know, part of that name, Muhammad, you know, one who submits his will to do the will of God. Well, that's what we do as a motorcade. That's what we do as believers in the Nation of Islam. We have submitted ourselves to say, okay, we got to do what's right. We're trying to do what's right. You know, we're trying to do what's right better every day. So in that regard to being a Muslim and being on this particular assignment at this particular time, oh my God, brother. You know, I can only pray that, you know, when I got to go see my God, Allah, and he asked me, well, Brother Stephen, what did you think of your assignment? Man, I'm going to drop to my knees and say, do you have another? You know, do you have another? It is such a humbling. The brothers I've met, you know, like yourself, your father, the brothers who were before me, Emil, you know, Brother Aaron, who drives now, Brother Jabbar, you know, Brother Vernell, Brother Vince, I could go on, you know, the national drivers, you know, around the country, you know, all of these brothers, Leroy, Kevin, Larry, I mean, I could just go on. Man, this thing has given me so much, I'll just say fulfillment by this assignment. That I don't have any complaints, you know, when it comes to this, when it comes to the sacrifice, I don't have any complaints. Yeah, I might say, man, I got to get up early again. Right? Well, you know, it's not like I'm not going to get up.
Yes, sir.
You know,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Be it the will of Allah, of course. But it's something that we all strive for, you know, to have an assignment from Allah. And we understand Allah works through human beings.
That's right.
Okay. And we fulfill that assignment. You know, I mean, now my assignment is I've had the opportunity to work on the farm of the Honorable Minister Min Farrakhan. Figure that one out, you know, figure that one out, you know, to go from moving him throughout the country. Now he's helped me learn how to grow food and feed myself, my family, and my nation, and whoever else, you know. So you couldn't have told me this 30 years ago, Jai, that at my age, 61 years old, I'd be working on a farm.
Praise be to Allah. Go ahead, Brother Stevie. Yes, sir.
You couldn't have told me that. And probably me saying it on your podcast is probably a whole bunch of people I know that never knew that I've been working on a farm as a farmer. You know, but I love it. It's spiritual. It's totally spiritual. You know, the first instruction from God was to till the land. Okay, so this is something that we all need to study on. We all need to look in the books of scripture and see how farming is such a relevant instruction from God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, it's not just something we do. It's an instruction, you know. But you know, I'm not gonna hold you up with the farming side unless you know. But it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Brother Stephen. We're coming to the farming, and thank you. So many people were saying that's beautiful, and they in the comments showing you love. Thank everyone. Continue to show support to our brother Stephen Muhammad and the People's Podcast. Let's deal with the Million Man March, Brother Stephen. Can you let us know what was the climate like leading up to the march? What was it like once you got there, and how did it personally impact you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, the Million Man March, brother, you know, and I'll start it by saying this. That really helped me understand that God is a man. Okay? And I'm gonna tell you why. I was out on that mall at 5 o'clock in the morning. That day, my assignment, I didn't have to drive. Okay. I had an assignment dealing with communications, right? So I'm out on the mall at 5 in the morning. It was chilly then. It was kind of cold. By 9:30 or so, sun up, was getting warmer. I would say about 150, 200,000 brothers were there by 9:30, 10 o'clock. Okay. Now I'm on the stage right? I'm on the stage, I'm making sure people that need the communications have it. Well, I had to go to the washroom, right? And this is before the minister spoke, but it was not long before he spoke, you know, before the speaker started speaking. So by now, it's a million men there. Okay, or you know, it's a million brothers out there, right? Well, the Porter Johns were off to the stage right, but out on the street, I think it was Pennsylvania they were on. And so you had to walk, you know, about a quarter of a block almost, right? So when I walked that way, it was fine. But coming back, it seemed like it was more brothers out there. So now the way I walked is full of brothers. I can't come back that way. So I have to kind of make another route. Well, as I'm trying to look which way I'm going to come through, at least about 4,000 or 5,000 brothers, I had to walk back through to get back to the stage. It was a man in the audience. I had on my FOI uniform, right? He looked at me. He said, "Brother, is everything all right? You need any assistance?" And I guess I had that look on my face like, how am I get way back to this stage through all these brothers? I said, man, I got to get back to the stage, and I'm just trying to figure out a path. He said, "Brother, don't worry about it. I got you." Do you know this man opened up a hole for me like a fullback would for a football team, and he walked me at least 100 to 150 yards. I'm going to say about 100 yards to get back up to that stage. And he opened a hole up all the way. Open the hole. This brother got to get to the stage. He got to get to the stage. And as Allah as my witness, brother, it was nothing I could say to really thank him. You know, I just gave him a hug and said, "Brother, there's no way you wasn't sent by God. There's no way." I'd have still been trying to get back to that stage today. You know?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And he literally opened up the Black Sea for me. Okay. And man, when I got to that stage and I turned around and looked back into the audience, I couldn't even see the brother then. I didn't know where he was. And I couldn't even see where I had just walked through. It was shoulder to shoulder. But that's when it came over me again. God is a man. And I looked at all of these black, brown brothers out here that day. I didn't smell one joint. I didn't smell one cigar. I didn't smell one cigarette. I didn't hear one curse word. I didn't hear anyone even raise their voice other than the brother saying, "Make a hole, make a hole." You know, that's about it. But as Allah is my witness, and I have to say it that way because it impacted me so much to see these men all on one accord and about to be under one voice. It was such a strengthening movement and a strengthening moment, I should say, that I looked and I said, man, now I'm gonna be honest with you too. I also said, would you look at that? Look at this army. I said, look at this army of black men who came to hear the general under one voice. And they started chanting, Farrakhan, Farrakhan. Oh man, I mean, it gave you chills, like, ooh, you know, like unbelievable. You know, and I was 35 at the time. So I'm still a young man, you know, I'm still, you know, full of energy, full of life, you know, just all over the place, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But when I looked at that, brother, all I could say was Allahu Akbar.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Look at this. And when you see the pictures, especially like pictures that were taken from helicopters, that shows you the picture, but it doesn't give you the spirit. To be there, the spirit, brother, was amazing. It was totally 100% God's spirit. There's no way that God wasn't present. There's no way. And like I said, if you would have seen the atmosphere, felt the spirit or that atmosphere, you would have understood that the voice that these brothers were hearing, it couldn't come from anyone but God.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just any black man couldn't have spoke. No, that was God speaking that day. And that even solidified with me that God is a man. God is a man, you know? So it was a humbling experience, very humbling, because, you know, you knew, you know, what the enemy expected. See, we can't talk about the Million Man March without what the enemy expected.
That's right. That's right.
The enemy expected, let me tell you, they were expecting to come down on the brothers. Oh, they had artillery waiting. They had armories ready. Okay, don't make no mistake that the enemy was ready to move that day had there been some type of incitement of something. But there was nothing. It was to the point that where it was so much nothing going on. When the brothers left, wasn't no garbage out there. Wasn't no packs of cigarettes, wasn't no wine bottles, wasn't no beer bottles. You know, there was nothing out there except what was already there. So they actually left it better than it was than before they got there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, if you ask me, isn't that what a Muslim's supposed to do?
That's right.
That's why I saw a sea of Muslims. I saw a sea of brothers submitting to their nature. That's what I saw. Of peace. Powerful peace. Not peace that you think you can, you know, overthrow now. No.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Man, I saw strong black men, you know, strong men that came from everywhere. I saw smiles on faces, you know, all over the place, you know. Well, pardon me.
Yes, sir. Take your time.
Okay. I saw smiles on faces of people that you knew they were gangsters.
Yes, sir.
You knew they was from the rough side of the tracks. But you saw them laughing and embracing their brothers. And, you know, you saw brothers exchanging numbers, you know, because there were a lot of organizations out there that day too. You know, a lot of fraternities were out there that day. A lot of organizations from communities were out there that day. So you saw people giving each other's numbers, giving each other their card, you know, their business cards and stuff like that. They wasn't passing no dope, you know, they wasn't passing no alcohol. That's no, right. They were passing business cards. They were passing information to go back to their communities to strengthen them, you know. So anybody that says that the Million Man March was on some other hidden agenda, something like that, oh, you err in your thoughts, you know, you err in your speech, because that was God showing himself to the world. That's what the Million Man March was. God showed himself to the world. And he showed himself through the black man and woman here in North America, because there is no other people that he needed to show himself through more than us.
That's right. That's right.
You see, remember at this time, this is when, the Rodney King incident, and it was a lot of things going on. It was a lot of things going on back then. And now, thank God to the telephone, now it's being taped. See, it wasn't like it wasn't going on. It was being taped. That's all. The drive-bys and everything that the police have done, that white folks have done, we didn't start this. Man, it was times where, brother, I was playing football in my friend's front yard. First time I was exposed to a drive-by, I saw a white hand out the window with a gun. Wasn't a black hand. And when I say police being involved, meaning that we know that if they wanted to, they could catch a lot of what's going on. But it's not happening. And it didn't happen back then. There were things that people were getting away with in our community that weren't from our community. See, they don't never want to talk about that. But all you got to do is do your research. Do some reading. You'll find out. You'll see. They talk about the guns in the neighborhood today. Well, we're not bringing guns in like that. Do your research. Talk about the drugs coming in. We're not bringing drugs in by the shiploads.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Do
sir.
your research. So the Million Man March also showed that when we communicated with each other, we really realized that the same problem I got in Chicago, they got it in Cleveland. Same problem in Cleveland and Detroit. Same problem in Detroit and Atlanta. Same problem in Atlanta, in Houston, in Los Angeles. You see what I'm saying? In San Francisco and Oakland. As Black people, the same problems are being shared in all of our communities. And there are hidden hands behind these problems. And unfortunately, the police have, as we have seen, has had their hand hidden for many years. So when the minister asked everyone to go back and join an organization or join a religious group or join something in your community that helps strengthen your community, he asked the brothers, go back and adopt and have mentorships and things like that. Okay, see, these things have been going on and are going on, but you never hear them being talked about. It's a reason for that. It's a reason. And having been on this assignment, going through the different cities, I get a chance to talk to some of the people that's just on the street.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When we're out there doing our research to bring the minister to this particular city, well, we're seeing what's going on too. Because many times he's talking in churches that are in the hood, as we say. That's the other thing people don't realize, that before the Million Man March, the minister crisscrossed this country with all men's meetings. Brother, that was miraculous.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To see thousands of Black men in different cities, but all on one accord, listening to the minister, getting their marching orders for the Million Man March. Oh my goodness, brother. Ooh, brother. That, man, I don't need to tell you, I'm sure your father has stories that he could give you, if he hasn't already, but to witness that all across the country, we have the same problems in our community. I've witnessed that. The people are so similar, you can almost take this group of people from Chicago and put them in the same neighborhood in Atlanta and vice versa, and you wouldn't know the difference. Because the problems are so common, and having to be on the street driving, you see this up close and personal. You see the neighborhoods that they're not funding properly. You see the neighborhoods that they are funding. You see the neighborhoods that don't have resources. You see the neighborhoods that do. You see what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So not only have we been assisting the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in his movement but we've also become witness bearers to the enemy's movement too. See, when you're traveling, you also see how the enemy moves, because he's trying to keep up with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You see,
yes, sir.
He's trying to watch you. He's trying to keep up with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. See what he's doing. Well, you see how he does it. They put things in our neighborhood to deter people from listening to the minister. And when you travel across this country, that's what you become a witness bearer to. You know, I'm going to say it like this. It's not all glitz and glamour. You know, you see how people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How they're killed wholesale for the lack of knowledge. And how the enemy maintains that hold on the knowledge and manipulates the knowledge for their purpose. So in serving in a capacity as such, you see a lot. You see a lot. You see a lot, and you see it all, and not just in America. You know, the same mentality has been brought to countries all throughout the world. And for people that don't want to hear it, well, here it is. That mentality is white supremacy. Racism. That mentality is keeping the truth about God from God's people. I mean, you see it. It's in front of your face.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, however, we have someone that addresses it all, you know, and he deals with them. You know, I mean, that's one of the things I've learned too, that, man, we got to be real careful in our growth in the nation, because we never want to go before the minister. You know, he's the one that's been given this high assignment, and we've been given an assignment to help him.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Yes, sir.
So we have to remember that, because, you know, you sometimes get out there, man, and you want to start, you know, gathering your own followers. You know, you thinking you got your own followers. Come on now. You know, be careful. Our people have been hurt, man. Our people have been destroyed. You know, that's why I've never been no eager person to become a minister. That's a heck of a post.
I agree.
I mean, that is a heavy post. I mean, you know, firsthand, that's a heavy post. And I don't know if my shoulders can handle that about it. You know, I'm still trying to minister myself, you know, unto myself.
Yes, sir.
You know, so, but it's beautiful. It's a assignment that never gets old. I mean, I might get old, but, you know, the assignment never gets old.
But Stephen, on that point, the men's only, I spoke with my sister Miriam about, I think yesterday, dealing with the Million Man March. We was discussing something, and I said, I don't know if, I think we missed it. The men's only and the Million Man March. Is that something that you think is like a once in a lifetime situation?
Well, I'm going to say yes, but then I'm also going to say what the potential is. See, because what that did, it's like, what's the science? The object in motion tends to stay in motion until acted upon by outside force.
That's right. That's right.
So that's what the Million Man March did. It put Black men in America in motion. It gave us an agenda, the agenda of atonement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, well, with the Day of Atonement now, this is the wheel that's continually turning for us to get on. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just get on one that's already rolling in your direction.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the Million Man March put us in a certain direction to atone as Black men, and to atone from God all the way through. You know, but God works through human beings. So we have to atone to the human beings that we have need to atone to. So in that, if we'll see that again, I pray we do. I pray we do. I pray not just from a standpoint of seeing the minister do it, but from the standpoint of we all become participants in that particular principle of atonement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, again, going back, how do you secure something? By securing the philosophy within yourself and your families. See, if we secure the Day of Atonement within our communities throughout the world, because we worldwide, Black people, we worldwide.
That's right. That's right.
Chicago, we just not in Atlanta.
That's right.
It's not in the United States, we worldwide. So that heartfelt commitment of atonement has to be kept moving. It has to be kept in a direction for us as a people, not just as individuals, but as a people, because we need to atone to ourselves. We need to, as men, atone to our women. You know, we need to atone to our children, to our communities. But how do you atone? Well, we know the program and the steps to take. We all have heard the pledge we have, but now what's the action behind it? See, so can there be another Million Man March? Well, I'm gonna put it like this. It's a Million Man March every day if we only knew it. Every day, I could probably take 1 million Black men and they all going through the same thing. They all dealing with the same issues, the same oppression, the same oppressors, you know? So the Million Man March has to be something that we never forget and that we teach in our classes.
Yes, sir. Yes,
in
sir.
our schools and in our universities. When I said we need to study the minister, this would be part of the study. The Million Man March. See, because that name in itself, Million Man March, when you go define those words, you get more meaning out of them. And then to have them connected to this great day, you get more meaning out of it. And we all know it was almost 2 million.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
It's closer to 2 million. I would love to see that happen again. I do though think that, you know, that's a once in a lifetime thing. You know, what you might see in your lifetime might have the same equivalence, but it might be 1 million views as compared to the men on the march.
You teaching, bro, Steve? Yes, sir.
Now you got 1 million views. And we all know, like they say, a newspaper circulates 3 or 4 times in a household. So views circulate. So 1 million views will circulate 3 or 4 times.
That's right. That's
3,
right.
4 million more.
That's right. That's right. You teaching.
See, so in that respect, that is what the Million Man March has become. Not just boots on the ground, but thoughts in your mind.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Knowledge in your mind. Study in your mind. You know, if you want to change something, you first got to change your mind. You know, and I heard Les Brown say, to do something you've never done, you have to become someone you've never been.
That's right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we have to become anew again, you know, with this work, through this work, as we work. And the Million Man March will never die based on the philosophy that it was giving us. So I don't see them keeping it out of the history books too much longer. They're going to try. Don't get it twisted. They're going to try. They're trying right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, they're doing their best to keep the Honorable Elijah Muhammad out of the history books. They're doing their best to keep Master Farrakhan Muhammad out of the history books.
That's right. That's right.
But the Honorable Minister Min Farrakhan won't let them do that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Excellent, Brother Stephen. So many people are showing you love in the comments, and thank everyone who continues to watch. Okay, Brother Stephen, my next question for you, sir, is you said you traveled overseas with the Most Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Right, really, but actually really only once.
Yes, sir. Can you tell us about it?
The minister had taken a trip, I want to say back home. He went to St. Kitts, where his family is from. And, you know, St. Kitts being a small island is one thing, but everybody knew the name Farrakhan. Everybody knew the name Farrakhan. You know, and that showed me something that, man, you know, the name Farrakhan goes way beyond borders, way beyond land, you know, way beyond mountains. So in a trip like that, there was a lot of preparation, of course, a lot of preparation, a lot of work, you know, a lot of work, you know, you're going into, as I looked at it, you know, I had never been there. So I got to go there and learn the island.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You see, and it's really amazing because when you asked earlier, you know, back in the day, how did you figure this out? How did you, you know, learn your routes and all of that stuff? Well, one thing that these teachings have done for me, when God studied himself and developed himself.
That's right.
That tells me I have to study myself and develop myself.
Yes, sir.
Even in a place I'm not from. See, so we had to study the island. Then we had to, that fear that you brought up, there was a little fear because I'm in unknown territory.
Yes, sir.
So there was a little, you know, fear of the unknown. But after we did our research, after we did our study, after we ran our routes, after we met people there, your confidence builds. And it builds and it builds. And before you know it, you would have thought I was from there. You would have thought we were from there. There was no place that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan didn't say he wanted to go that we couldn't take. We figured out how to get there. We learned how to get there, and we got there. And I mean, you know, it's also too, on an island, you can only go so many places anyway. Remember that part.
Yes, sir.
Know? So it wasn't that the island was large or anything like that, but you do have to know where you're going. But it's, again, back to the same point. They have the same problems there that we have here in the States. You see the same type of oppression on the island. You see what I mean?
Yes, sir.
You see the same type of, this type of income class over here, that type of income class over there. You know, light skin, dark skin, you know, white people over there somewhere, black people over here somewhere. You know, not that there wasn't a mixture of people. However, you do see some of the same elements that have been here in the United States on a little island like St. Kitts. And it shows you, again, that oppression is worldwide.
That's right. Yes, sir.
White supremacy is worldwide. You know, so it all has had a starting point somewhere, but it reached everywhere. You know, but on the other hand, it's a beautiful island. Oh my
Yes,
God. I mean, beautiful. Okay. Everywhere you go, the people are beautiful. You know, the people have a spirit where they're not fearful. They just have not been given the proper resources and tools and knowledge to do for self. See, I didn't know, brother, on that island, they basically import everything. They have no national industry that they can export in order to make the island viable with income. I was like, what? Unbelievable. So they have to import everything, basically. You know, I believe, you know, it's St. Kitts is, you know, West Indies. So it's under British government, I guess you would say.
Yes, sir.
But
yes, sir.
Wow. It's nothing here that they have that they can call their own, that they can give around the world as produce or as a product. So it goes to show you, they did the same thing on the islands they did with Africa. The exact same thing. Exactly. They took the resources from the people and made the people buy them back. You know, so the trip was a good trip. It was a very restoring trip. You know, whenever you can be in tropical island weather, you know, it restores you. But brother, me and some of the brothers, we were on the beach one day, right? And we're looking out into the Atlantic Ocean. And we said to ourselves, man, how many of our people are in that ocean? Brother, when that thought came across us, all of our face was kind of like, it made you very, very, very thankful that they came across that ocean.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because we wouldn't be here if they had, you know, but many of them did not make it. And when you look at an ocean like that and you just see nothing but water, and you know, there are millions of bodies in that water, man.
That's right. That's right.
You know, you can't go on trips like these with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who helps raise our spirituality without being spiritual.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You sit there and you reflect and you look and you're like, man, you know, I mean, I'm saying to myself, how many bones were probably washed up on that island of our people over the years? See, we don't know who these people would have become had they made it through, but they didn't. So Allah allowed that for a reason. You know, he allowed it for a reason. So it humbles you, you know, and you look at it, you know, you don't get angry, you don't get mad, you get encouraged.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, and you get motivated to make sure you teach your babies about our sojourn here in America. See, we can't let them put in the history books, oh, we were indentured servants and we made some type of agreement to do this. You know,
right. Yes, sir.
No. Everything was against our will.
That's right.
You know, so it makes you look and you say, man, you look in that ocean and you say, man, you know, how many of our people who are in the bottom of that ocean thought they were going to a better place? None of them did. You see what I'm saying? Because they knew they were captured. You know, it wasn't like they was on a cruise.
Yes, sir.
So
yes,
imagine having a boat full of people that know this is not, you know, the cruise line that I'm on vacation with. You know, none of our people had thoughts that they were going to a better place. You know, they try to make you think that, well, you know, they thought they got on the boats because they thought they was going to a better place. No, they didn't. They were captured and put on the boats. So they never thought they were going to a better place. Never. They knew that they were going somewhere that was foreign to them, but they didn't know how what was foreign to them was going to be hell. They never knew that.
That's right.
So when you get to travel with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, you reflect. I can only imagine, you know, your father being one who's traveled all over the world and what he has seen and what reflections that has given him to go into different countries and see how the people are oppressed and knowing that the minister is there to lift them up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's part of his assignment, to help the minister lift them up. But traveling, brother, you cannot understand a man of this magnitude. Well, I'm not saying you cannot understand. You don't understand his magnitude if you haven't traveled to see his impact throughout the world. You know, just Savior's Day in Jamaica. You know, a Day of Atonement in Jamaica. I mean, just places, they don't have to be big, but you see the impact that he's had on the islands, the Caribbean, Cuba, okay, Iran, Iraq. We see the impact he's had in Europe because they won't let him in there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, that says something. And you can really tell the measure of a man by who are his enemies.
That's right.
See, who are his enemies? See, people want to talk about what he says and maybe their lack of understanding what he says, but why is the enemy so concerned with what he said? Because truth always makes a liar concerned.
That's right. That's right.
It's just that simple. You know, the minister, if he was just somebody, like he said before, he would just go away all by himself. But why are they so interested in him? That should make us think. That's why I say we have to study him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We have to study him. And those of us who had the opportunity to be with him, we have to study him even more because we've witnessed a lot. So we have to study his impact on what we've witnessed, you know. But traveling, brother, to go in another land with him, like I said, with the name Farrakhan, the little brother on the street, we were down in, I guess you say, the little downtown part of St. Kitts. And there was a brother down there. He was a boxing coach, actually, right? Mm-hmm. Older gentleman. And we just were talking for a minute. And the name Farrakhan came up. Man, that brother lit up like a Christmas tree. Mm-hmm. Farrakhan, what? Farrakhan. Brother, man, I mean, he lit up like a Christmas tree. And he had known the minister's name. I think he was probably in his 50s, you know, something like that. And he was quite aware of the minister. See, the world is aware of his name, but it's just that many people won't allow it to be said.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, they don't want to say that name because they know what that name represents. A true and living God.
That's right. That's right.
You know, a true and living Christ.
Oh, you know, yes, sir.
True and living Mahdi, Messiah. You know, they know what that name represents. So they don't want that name just floating around, you know, if they can help. Or if it does float around, they're going to try to put a tarnish on it, you know. But
excellent.
the travel, brother, stupendous, brother. You know, gave me another outlook on life.
Wonderful, sir. And thank you again, for Stephen. And thank everyone who continues to watch the People's Podcast. My next question for you, sir, is what has been your greatest trial and how have you overcome that?
Oh, brother. Well, I will say one of my greatest trials, if not the greatest, was learning better how to treat a woman. Mm. You know, learning better how to understand a woman, which I'm still trying to do. You know?
Yes, sir.
Still trying to get that understanding. And I say that because, you know, I've been married before. I got divorced. You know, I have a son, 25 years old. I have a daughter, 29 years old. But now I've gotten married again. And I have a son, 2 years old. See, so now, and my wife is 20 years younger than me. Okay. So I have to kind of like reinvent myself to understand a woman of this time. See, it's different when you marry a woman in your age bracket. And it's also different if you marry a woman that's younger than you, or a little younger than you, or vice versa for a woman. So that has been a great trial for me because I wasn't always the best with women. You know, I wasn't all, you know, I had that male chauvinistic approach. You know, I'm not going to sit here and lie about that. You know, no, I had that. And I had to realize that, man, that's not the best way to approach a woman with that mindset. You know, and it wasn't because that's what I saw at home. My father didn't have that approach. He was a man. He took care of his family. My mother, the wife, she took care of her family. But it wasn't like, you know, you better do this, you better do that because you're a woman. No. However, I did see the role of a woman, the role of a man in a household, in our household. And I think as I got older, I became victim to the misunderstanding that I saw portrayed as relationships in the media. I think I fell victim to that. you know, and not that they were always bad, but they weren't always realistic, you know. And I came up during a time where TV, you know, when I was a youngster, TV was still new. So as I got older, TV became a big thing where, you know, you had these different programs on TV representing the Black woman, you know, representing the Black man. And they weren't always the best programs, you know. I mean, yeah, we looked at Good Times, things like that, you know, the Jeffersons, things like that, you know. Yeah, they were humorous, they were comical, but they always didn't represent us in the best of manner. Not that they always represent us in the worst, but they always didn't represent us in the best. And so sometimes you get a little distorted in your approach to the opposite sex when it comes to your program, you know. And so as I got older, I had to realize, you know, women are not playthings, you know, and I'm still realizing that. I'm still, you know, this isn't something that poof, it just goes away. No, you have to realize that, man, I got to be more understanding of what a woman's approach to life is.
Yes, sir.
You know, especially having a daughter, you know, 29-year-old daughter. So in that regard, that has been a challenge to be more capable of getting into the mind of a woman. You know, and the mind of a woman, you know, I married both times MGT. This just ain't no regular woman now. This is a woman, you know, I'm just gonna keep it 100 with you.
Yes,
she
sir.
gonna challenge your manhood.
Yes, sir.
Not challenge it like, you know, she want to be the man, you want, no, I mean, she gonna make you live up to it. You know, and not that women who are not in the Nation of Islam, not that they don't do that, but when you have an understanding of yourself better, which is what I've come to understand myself better as a FOI, in training of being a man and the responsibility I have and the accountability I have to a woman. You know, and you have to keep that on the forefront of our brain. I mean, we've heard it mentioned many times, a nation could rise no higher than its woman. But it didn't just say a nation could rise no higher than your woman or my woman. There's a woman. So all women are included. You see what I'm saying? So now we have to understand as men that a woman, whether she black, brown, blue, I don't care what color she is, she has a special purpose to bring in life. It's not going to be no more men if there's no more women.
That's right.
It's just
That's
that
right.
simple. So when you understand that and realize, man, life is precious. We see how many of our brothers and sisters lose theirs, especially over foolishness.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, so in that respect, trying to be more of a husband, trying to be more understanding in my role as a husband and in my wife's role as a wife, to realize that I can't just come to her thinking she should do this or should do that. I have to realize that I have to help her just like she got to help me. You know, there is no femininity without masculinity. And there's no masculinity without femininity. So the opposites draw from each other. They pull things out of each other. Oh yeah, my wife has pulled things out of me already, you know. So, you know, and it all ain't where I got a smile on my face. But I'm learning myself. If I wasn't around her, this wouldn't come out. And by coming out, it made me realize I got work to do. You know, and the same with her. I pull things out of her. So that challenge of being just a good man, just a good role model as a father, you know, to understand women, not just my woman or my child or my wife or my daughter, but understand women as a whole, that, you know, they are a lot more sacred than we give them credit for, you know, and having this teaching makes you realize that, you know, makes you realize that, man, it's much bigger than we think. You know, they are the second self of Allah. You know, and when you appreciate that, you realize they can be just as creative as you can. You know, the question is, are you assisting them in that? You know, we talk about, well, men are maintainers of women. Man, okay, that's fine. But again, go look up that word maintenance or maintain. It's a deep word. Because when you maintain something, don't you also protect it? I would think so.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If I'm trying to maintain my home, you better believe I'm going to protect my home.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From all outside forces. It's the same thing with a woman. But now, being on a farm and working on a farm, which is a spiritual experience, that's even giving me more insight on how to treat a woman. You know, if you want a flower to grow, you got to water it. You know, if you want a vegetable to grow that has substance for you to feed from, you got to take care of and water it. You got to keep bugs off of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, you got to keep certain things out of the garden. And that woman is a garden. And it's up to us to protect that garden and to make sure we give it the proper fertilizer at the proper time. Okay, watering it properly. You know, there's an art to watering a garden. You know, you just don't spray water all over. No, you have to water it at the root to make sure the roots go down. So that's what our job is as maintainers of women, to make sure they get watered at the root. Well, our root is the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I have to help water her at that root. What does that mean? We need to talk about the teachings. Let's make sure we read. Let's make sure we study. You know, we might not always do it together, but we do it. And we have something to talk about. You know, and even though you're in the same house, there are different viewpoints. You know, there are different viewpoints. But after you go around that circle, you come right back to the message of Allah. You know, you come right back. So in that regard, you know, it's a challenge to be a man. I'm not just talking about being a male. You know, we all a male. I'm talking about being a man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, who is a follower of Farrakhan. You know, who is a fruit of Islam. You know, yeah, we got responsibilities, you know, and we can't say that we are these things without making sure our responsibilities are upheld. It's just that simple. So that's one of my biggest challenges right there, just to make sure I treat my wife and women of the world proper.
Beautiful, Brother Stephen. Brother Stephen, what type of music do you listen to?
Oh, brother, now that's another interesting subject with me. Well, I say that because I came up in a musical family.
Okay, okay.
You know, my father worked for a music company. He worked for Motown Records for many years. Worked for United Artists Records. He worked for Stax Records. He worked for them old school record companies.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So growing up, I heard jazz. I heard blues. I heard rock and roll. I heard gospel. I heard, you know, music from other countries. You know, I just say, you know, foreign music. And then, of course, hip hop came out. You know, I mean, I go back to, if anybody remembers Gil Scott-Heron and the Last Poets. You know, that was the first hip hop I heard.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I'm
sir.
concerned, the first rap I heard. But I love jazz. You know, I love jazz fusion, as they call it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, but then again, tomorrow I might want to go to a Bootsy Collins concert. You know?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I was raised on music. My brother, for many years, is a professional drummer. May Allah be pleased.
May Allah be pleased.
And so by him being a drummer, I kind of picked it up and became a drummer, not professionally, but just, you know, sparingly.
Yes, sir.
So that's one of the ways I kind of release my anxieties. You know, I got an electric drum set that I get on. And
okay, go ahead, Mr. Stephen.
You know, and that way nobody can hear me banging through the house. You know, right. It's not like I'm making a lot of noise and nothing.
Yes, sir.
But, you know, it's a way to keep your body vibrant, your mind vibrant, the coordination going, you know. It's actually a good exercise, you know, to play the drum, you know. And man, I used to be in the band when I was younger at school, played the trumpet for a minute,
Okay.
So, I had a few instruments I picked up, but drums was probably the one I'm most consistent with, and to tell you a story about my brother being a drummer. My brother actually won a Grammy being a drummer with the jazz singer Joe Williams. And I believe an album he made all about the blues. But to show you how Allah works, my brother was the drummer for Min Farrakhan, the brother of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because he was a jazz musician.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So one day I look up and my brother was in Chicago playing at a place called the Cotton Club. And he was like, come on down, check me out, And he didn't tell me that he was the minister's brother's drummer. He just said, come on down, check me out, I go down there, next thing I know, here's Min Farrakhan on the keyboards. And I'm like, man, you play drums with the minister's brother? I'm like, what? You know what I'm saying? My brother would do stuff like that, man, keep secrets and whatnot. And I'm like, man, what? So it was like, wow. And then to see the minister do his music. And what I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I wonder if me and the minister can get a session together one day. He played the violin, I play the drums. I'm just playing. I'm just joking. But it makes you think that, man, Allah been all in my life and I didn't even know it.
Praise be to Allah.
He brought me here, But then, like I said, my father was in the music business for many, many years, and he was a road manager for groups such as the Jackson 5, the Temptations, the Miracles, Diana Ross, I mean, pretty much all of Motown's big artists back in the day, this was like mid to late 70s. They went through him, when they traveled, pretty much this side of the Mississippi, so I was able to be exposed to music at a very young age, and been around music all of my life, and probably, might have shot myself in the foot because I probably should have studied music, more vigorously and got into the music side of business from, an arrangement and musical standpoint, because I love to listen to arrangements of music, But right now, I'm probably more frequent with jazz, rhythm and blues, little R&B, I mean, one of my favorite radio stations, though, is Rock the Bells Radio, LL Cool J station on Sirius Radio.
Okay.
I listen to old school rap.
Okay.
I listen to the new rap a little bit. I do sometimes feel that the brothers kind of, get taken off the wrong course, sometimes with the skill set they have. When I listen to hip hop, I look at them as lyricists, wordsmiths, and these brothers and sisters out here put words together so magnificently, really, that, it's a very threatening thing to the enemy. I mean, we know that.
Yes, sir.
That hip hop is a very threatening thing because they've really got their boots ruffled when they realize all the white children that listen to it, and the knowledge that they getting out of hip hop.
Yes, sir.
But I came up, when the Mos Def was on the scene, and the Commons got started.
Yes, sir.
All of those brothers and sisters, the NWAs, Yo-Yo, and all of those rappers, the Ice-T's and all. I used to listen to all of that. Sometimes still do.
Yes, sir.
So I love music. I listen to a lot of like violin type music. Not necessarily orchestra type music, or but people who are individual artists that might be jazz violinists, or hip hop violinists.
Yes, sir.
So I listen to. I might tomorrow be listening to Coldplay.
Yes, sir.
I might be tomorrow listening to somebody like Moby. So I listen, or the Verve, you know, I listen to a lot of different music, man. If you saw my Pandora, brother, you'd be like, man, you know, it's not too many types of music that's not on my Pandora.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I love music. I raised with it, you know. Like I said, my family has a history with it, you know. And so music is intertwined in my soul. You know, I definitely will teach my son how to play musical instruments, you know, see which one he wants to, you know. My daughter, my oldest daughter, my oldest son, they took a different route. You know, one daughter's a nurse, another son, he decided to manage golf courses for a minute or something, you know. So, but I'm just saying from a standpoint of me personally, man, I could sit and listen to music all day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All day long. So music is in my soul.
Excellent. And Brother Stephen, there's a movie called Baby Driver. Have you ever seen it before?
Yes, I think I have. I think with the getaway driver.
Yes, sir. He playing. The music is always going in his head. Yes, sir. Yes.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, well, Brother Stephen, first of all, I have one more question for you, but I want to thank you. So many people were commenting. Can't wait to put this on YouTube. Brother Stephen, once again, on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we want to thank you for your sacrifice and the sacrifice of your family, and let you know how much an honor it is that you come on the People's Podcast. What would you like your legacy to be, sir?
Well, you know, after the dust settles, you know, and the trumpet is played and the clock is ran out, it's really simple that I assisted the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the work of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's all. You know, I don't need no parades. I don't need no, you know, big billboards or nothing like that. You know, Allah is sufficient. You know, but I would like it to be known that, you know, especially people that know me and they saw me grow and they saw me with my bumps and bruises and, you know, the mistakes I've made in life with people and all of that. I would like them to know, in spite of myself and regardless of the lack of knowledge I had, that God saw me fit to help the messenger of Allah. You know, that's all. And when that day comes where the world really realizes who the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is, I just want them to say, when they see my picture, oh, that little brother there, yeah, he helped too. You know, he helped too. You know, and I want my children to know gotta make sure they know that I helped. Other than that, brother, it's been an honor, it's been a privilege, it's been a pleasure, it's been a humbling experience. You know, they say I can't wait, you know, you want to see yourself when you're on TV. You realize how you look when you're on TV or when you're in film, you know. So I can't wait to watch this myself to see all the bloopers that's in it, you know. But you know, brother, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Brother.
Man, I'm proud of you, brother. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud to know you. I'm proud to be on your show.
Thank you.
I'm really flabbergasted sometimes by the guests you have, because it's like, man, you getting the who's who of the who's who. You know, I mean, everybody's got, there's so much knowledge that you have on your show, brother, that it's amazing. It's amazing. And I try to watch you when I can and keep up with you, you know. So I just want to say thank you a million times over, brother, for
thank you, sir,
allowing your little brother, you know, to be a part of your vision.
Praise be to Allah.
You know, to be a part of your vision. I thank your family a million times over. I can't thank your father, Sharif Muhammad, enough that he helped mold me into the man I am today.
Praise be to Allah.
You know, and the brother Tartars and the brother Joshua's and the brother Mustafa's and, you know, the brother Aaron's. I mean, I got a list, brother, that just covers the world.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the sisters, you know, the sister Ava's and the sister Claudette's.
Yes, sir.
You know,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That have helped me become a man by assisting them.
You
know, So it's like, brother, it's just a beautiful thing to know that the nation is going to be secure because brothers like yourself and sisters like yourself who make sure that those of us who have helped in this work get to testify to our service. Thank you. Yes, sir.
That's what it's all about, bro, Stephen. Thank everyone who's watching. I can't wait to put this on YouTube. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam.